Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a genuinely fascinating document. We are exploring Kang Yan's life system, or CYSM for short. This is a white paper written by Lin Kang Yan, and it lays out a rigorous 40-year framework for literally engineering a life of pure stability. Instead of blindly jumping into the standard rat race, chasing success and external validation like most of us do, Lin decided to treat his own life as a structural engineering project.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if you reframed your entire existence as a systems engineering problem? I mean, think about it. Most of us just experience life as this chaotic series of random events, sudden stresses and lucky breaks. We just react. But this explainer is going to show you exactly how one individual mapped out their survival, their capital, and their time like a master technician building a completely unbreakable machine.
Now, to really grasp how this works, we've got to start with a highly relatable origin story. The year is 1991. A 24-year-old Lin Kang Yan is working at NEC Semiconductors. He takes a photo in front of a place in Malacca called Credit Gate. And right there, he has this profound realization. He knew absolutely nothing about investing at the time, but he realized his youth was literally his only capital. He figured out he needed to basically borrow time from his youth, endure delayed gratification, to eventually buy back the ownership of his own future. And that single moment, it kicked off a 4-decade journey to total operational stability. So, to make sense of this massive 40-year framework, here is our blueprint. First, survival to exemption power. 2, the deterministic life modules. 3, engineering the autonomy equation. 4, ancient philosophy, modern engineering. And finally, 5, life is the final review. We're going to move from a personal realization to some hard metrics, and then end on some incredibly deep philosophical alignment. Let's jump right into Section 1, Survival to Exemption Power. Before retirement, most of us are essentially forced to constantly compensate against external schedules just to get by, right? We sacrifice our sleep, we push our bodies totally against their natural rhythms, all just to survive the modern workforce. But the ultimate goal of CYSM is something called exemption power. It's the right for your life system to finally operate on its own natural rhythm without having to force compensations just to please an employer or society. And the absolute crucial point to take away here is that exemption power is not obtained by just being lazy, and it actually doesn't come from exhausting daily effort either. It is hard-won through decades of calibration. It comes from building a structure with so much inertia that simply refusing to collapse becomes your default state. Well, how do you actually get there? You have to properly process life's raw materials. Notice how life events aren't treated as fate or just bad luck. They are simply categorized as signals. For Lin, something as random as a sparrow flying effortlessly into his kitchen in 2025 wasn't just a bird, it was a signal about autonomy. When you feed these signals into a well-maintained system over enough time, all that random noise just gets filtered out. Time builds up your capital and your resilient operations, which naturally aligns your path into real long-term stability. Which brings us to Section 2, the deterministic life modules. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we break abstract life goals down into precise engineering modules. Let's look at the actual hardware of his life, starting with the income engine, set at exactly 5.61%. Now, this isn't some arbitrary target. It is a locked-in, annualized return, primarily generated from Asian assets. It's specifically engineered to cover all basic operating costs without ever having to touch the principal. By locking this specific number in, the system achieves a permanent self-circulation. So it's not about getting rich quick, right? It's about securing a permanent power source for the entire system. And what does that income power? It powers the low-energy engine, which caps out at exactly 667 Singapore dollars a month. Yeah, that is astonishingly low. By locking his baseline monthly survival and dietary cost right there, Lin brilliantly decouples his core happiness from his overall net worth. Think about it. When your baseline survival requires such low energy, your system enters this amazing state of zero exit pressure. You aren't constantly stressing out about making more money because your baseline is just so incredibly manageable. But of course, reality is going to throw curveballs at you. And that is exactly why the third module is a 15% cash buffer. This is the ultimate safety net. What this buffer actually does is transform terrifying, unpredictable market volatility into completely visible, tolerable data. So when a market crash inevitably happens, it's not a panic-inducing crisis, it's just a metric being absorbed by the buffer. Now, financial capital isn't the only thing that needs maintenance. Your human capital does too. The skill evolution module shows exactly how Lin dynamically recalibrated his own skill set over 4 decades. He started way back in 1984 with an IDE in electrical engineering. Then he spent decades doing hands-on facilities maintenance. And in 2025, he's actually completing a specialist diploma in applied generative AI. This continuous recalibration ensures that he, the human individual, remains a highly valued asset to the system rather than turning into an obsolete liability. All right, moving on to Section 3, engineering the autonomy equation. So how do all these isolated deterministic modules actually come together? Well, in this unified equation, life autonomy is the result of your deterministic modules multiplied by survival time. Your modules, the financial, intellectual, health components, those are your foundation. But time? Time is the ultimate amplifier here. The longer your system runs without breaking down, the exponentially more powerful your autonomy becomes. It's literally the compounding effect of stability. And that leads us to this incredible quote. Lynn writes, "I don't pursue one-time success. Instead, I reduce the probability of system failure. When the probability of failure is low enough, time naturally translates into profit." I mean, what a brilliant inversion strategy. Society constantly tells us to chase success, to sprint as fast as we can. But CYSM tells us to simply engineer out the likelihood of failure. If you just ensure you don't fail, time ends up doing all the heavy lifting for you. Let's look at Section 4. Ancient Philosophy, Modern Engineering. As Lynn was compiling this massive 40-year spreadsheet of life data, he realized something pretty wild. His pure engineering framework actually perfectly aligned with thousands of years of human wisdom. Let's compare Laozi's cosmic concept of Wu Wei, which usually translates to non-action or effortless action, with CYSM. In the Tao Te Ching, Wu Wei is this mystical alignment with nature. But in Lin's engineering reality, it perfectly describes the exact state of his life system today. Effortlessness comes after you spend decades filtering out the noise so that the system naturally auto-drives without needing daily willpower or coercion. Different starting points, but the exact same outcome. Then we have the 20th century philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, who famously hit the limits of language, stating, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." Lin actually hit these exact same conceptual limits when trying to explain his life system, but instead of choosing silence, CYSM chooses operation. His rule is, what cannot be fully spoken, let the system verify through continuous operation and AI verification. Basically, where philosophy stops, engineering just keeps running the code. And this brilliantly illustrates Zhuangzi's concept of the usefulness of the useless. Way back in 1994, Lin chose to study artificial intelligence. Now, at the time, AI was an absolute technological wilderness. It seemed completely useless for practical, everyday applications. But Zhuangzi teaches that short-sighted views totally miss long-term worth. Fast forward 30 years later, and that seemingly useless deep dive into AI became his ultimate cognitive amplifier, helping Lin organize and verify this entire life framework. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Life is the Final Review. Let's redefine what it actually means to optimize a human life. As we wrap up this explainer, let's break down the ultimate contrast in optimization. Modern academic universities are fantastic at what they do, sure, but they optimize for external performance, publishing papers, getting degrees, securing titles, and seeking validation through academic peer review. CYSM, on the flip side, optimizes strictly for internal survival. It is entirely about securing stability through hard reality verification. Just look at the actual optimization targets of CYSM. Stable sleep, a healthy body, sustainable cash flow, a life trajectory that does not collapse under the immense weight of reality. Lin makes a really fascinating point here. You can have extraordinary professional expertise and still completely struggle to maintain a stable life. True intelligence isn't just about your professional output. It's about your ability to integrate your health, your capital, and your time into a unified system that won't break down over decades. So I want to leave you with this final, incredibly powerful thought from the source material. Because life itself is the final peer review. You can publish all the papers, win all the awards, and collect all the titles in the world. But whether your life system can actually operate stably over decades, that cannot be outsourced to a journal or an institution. Reality tests you every single day. So I have to ask you, is your current life system built just for the fleeting applause of external validation, or is it actually engineered for sustainable, autonomous survival? Take a hard look at your own parameters, and maybe it's time to start engineering your autonomy today.